Ooh, welcome to another webinar, everybody. Feel like it's been a webinar heavy week. You can put it in the comments if you're getting tired of hearing Justin talk. But tonight we've got a great topic. We're talking about genetics and we're talking about athletic optimization. And I'll tell you, fitness is definitely one of those primary epigenetic inputs that we have control over day by day. I've talked about, nutrition and different things that we're in control of and how it kind of impacts the body and its genetic expression. I think that fitness is another one of those things. We have control over the way that we train. Are we running every day? Are we stretching every day? Are we lifting every day? These are the inputs that we have control over, and it's going to dramatically impact our physiology in a lot of different ways. It's also part of our self-care model, right? Like, we're not over here giving you a fish. We're teaching you how to fish. I want to teach you guys how to take care of yourself. That's what a great coach does. A great coach doesn't tell you what to see. They show you where to look. And I think fitness is one of those big things, that you have control over every day. If you can find a way to move your body, you're going to help with your genetic expression, your longevity, and definitely your performance as well. Someone who knows a lot about athletic performance, by the way, is my colleague, the great and powerful Felicia Bruno. Felicia, it's been a while.
It has been a while, Justin, but I'm so excited to be back with you and doing a webinar on athletics and the thing we love to do best, working out and recovery and everything that goes along with it, from, sleep and diet, nutrition and exercising and sweating and all of it.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts to like how it's done. It's not just about moving weights around and then eating extra chicken, right? There's a few more elements to it that we know. And there's a tremendous genetic component into it that a lot of people aren't privy to. And I think that we're going to play a pretty good role in bringing that to light, because you can be exercising out of alignment with your genes and it can cause some downsides. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Before we get into all that, if you guys haven't had a chance to fill out the poll, please do so, because we'll go over the answers and it'll help us to kind of guide our conversation tonight. And I'm curious to know why you guys are here and the different kind of aspects of fitness that you would like us to touch on, because there's so many different ways. And I'll tell you, Felicia, like, I've always viewed fitness as being a way of kind of educating the nervous system in one way or another. Like, obviously, there's a big difference between how someone's going to train for a marathon versus how someone's going to train for a powerlifting meet versus a fight versus a tennis match, versus bodybuilding. So it's really about the input, right? It's about how you orchestrate your training day by day. You are the director of genetic fitness for the DNA company. So you're always doing this. You're writing plans, you're guiding people's nutrition. What do you do with like a normal, just day one client, someone who hasn't even done any working out? Like, how do you kind of get to that meeting them where they're at phase with someone who's not familiar with fitness, and where would you start them off?
Well, that's great. Yes. I love when I meet with people. You kind of have to first, you got to sit down and just kind of figure out their background. What does a day look like to them? Give me an example of, and I usually say, give me an example of 3 days. What does 3 days look like? Do you work all day? Do you sleep very little? Do you have kids? Do you walk everywhere you go? Or do what is your athletic, I shouldn't say athletic, maybe what is your exercise routine look like? How do you get moving? How do you get blood flowing? And from there, I kind of learn and go, okay. So I start in my head, start going, okay, this is what they kind of need. They kind of need. And then once I learn more about it, when I get their test, if they've done the DNA test, which phenomenal, is a total blueprint. I wish I'd have done it years ago when I first started competing. I probably would have turned pro a lot faster. But so I can look at somebody's blueprint. I can be like, oh, okay, they don't methylate well, or okay, they don't work, they don't know how to regulate carbs, or I can tell that their body's not really good with that, or that they hang on to stress a lot harder than most people. So all that goes involved with how you're going to set up a program and what it looks like. And then obviously at the end, I'm like, okay, so what are your goals? What is it that you want to be able to say, I accomplished in 3 months? I do short-term goals. I'm like, because we're gonna live forever, right? So I'm not going 4 years out. I'm going, let's do 3 months at a time. We're going to start here. And what is that 120 days? What does that look like to you? Where do you want to be? And then we kind of talk about it also and see if it's doable or if we need to maybe, you know, put in a little bit kind of different exercises than what they're looking at. But at the end of the day, it's all obtainable, right? I mean, it's all a work in progress. Like you said, it's a learning thing. You learn, it's the journey to get to that point, not the end result.
Yeah, because self care is really the highest form of self respect and self love. And again, we teach a self care model. This is not a situation where you want a coach to have to always guide you till the end of time. You want to be given the tools. And once you have the tools, you want to be able to take that and run with it as well. And I'll tell you, the DNA 360 is like one of the greatest guiding documents for any practitioner. You could be a personal trainer, you could be a nutritionist, you could be whatever, and be able to use the genetic insights. Like before I knew anything about functional genomics, I was already functioning as a nutritionist. And I was writing what I think were pretty good meal plans, but I'll tell you, I would have had way, way more specificity if I knew that this person had a, dysregulated insulin gene, right? I would have been able to modify the meal plan based on that. Or this person doesn't do fats well. This person doesn't do carbohydrates well. When I have clients that are athletes and they're like endurance athletes, there's a couple of genes that I look at right away to see how much of a problem that might cause for them. Because some people are pretty well wired to do that. If they've got good cardiovascular genetics, if they've got good like mitochondrial detoxification genetics, you can probably handle a decent, work capacity when it comes to cardio training. But I know a lot of people that were, just doing that chronic cardio, getting up every day and running, and they're like, man, I feel like I'm getting older because of this. Like it's almost counterintuitive. You think that you'd be getting younger from doing a lot of exercise, but for some people, they just accumulate free radicals in their mitochondria, and it literally makes the cells older. So I'll share a couple of the genes that I look at right off the bat when it comes to this thing. The first one is called 9p21. That's if you guys have your DNA 360, it's in the cardiovascular report. And it's actually not so much a gene as it is we call it a locus, like a chromosomal locus. So it's like a location on the gene or on the chromosome. But it really drastically influences the density and like the toughness of your blood vessels. So if you have like 3, 4, 5, or even 6G for that 9p21 locus, I don't recommend doing a heck of a lot of cardiovascular activity because it's a really thin endothelium that you were just born with. And you may be causing a little bit of damage there, or maybe even a lot, depending on your other genes, right? Your ability to deal with inflammation and things. So like for example, we're friends with the folks over at Cardio Miracle. I take that supplement myself, and it's great for supporting the endothelium. The owner of Cardio Miracle actually has a 6G in that 9p21 chromosomal locus. So really thin blood vessels, genetically speaking. They're not tough. They're not able to really deal with a lot of inflammation. And part of the reason he formulated that product was to scratch his own itch. And now a lot of people are using it. If you have anything over a 3 in that 9p21, I really recommend having some sort of support in there, especially if you're going to engage in cardiovascular activity. Do you see people with like that do a lot of cardio who are dealing with all kinds of issues like detox issues and maybe just overtraining issues? Like, is that a thing you see commonly?
I do. Um, and the sad part is I always breaks my heart when you see these people who are like, I've been running like 3 miles a day for, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I feel horrible and I can't recover. And I don't, obviously, there's no weight movement. Just feel like they're just hitting a wall and it's all for naught. So, yeah, I do see it. And you have to kind of step back and go, well, what do your genes say about that? And what is you're probably not built for it, or you're not built for that kind of long endurance. First of all, we're a different kind of you're going to be a different kind of workout. So yeah, it's a learning, right? It's talking to them, and again, I know the frustrations there, especially I deal with a lot of women, and the frustration is so there. Like I'm doing so much and nothing's happening. So we have to go back. That's where your genes can tell you a lot of, well, maybe it's because you weren't meant to run long distances. Maybe your body doesn't function that way. Let's look at it and put you on a shorter cardio session, still moving, Don't, and lift some more weights and see what happens. And 9 times out of 10, especially if I haven't looked at their genes, but 9 times out of 10, it changes quickly because their body's like, oh, it's a totally different beast. Lifting weights and moderate cardio, it shows up differently.
Yeah, almost a hybrid approach, like kind of a combination of different training strategies. I'd like to get into a couple more genes, but first we might as well have a look at that poll. If the powers that be wouldn't mind pulling her up. Lovely. All right, so we asked a few questions, and the first one was, how would you describe your primary athletic focus? And it looks like it's actually a pretty even split among all these. So between 20 and 31% for all of the above. We got endurance, power, and strength mixed, the hybrid that we were just talking about, like CrossFit. You guys are sadists, whoever's doing that in the audience. Or, you're not an athlete, and that's just fine too. Not everybody has to be. The second question that we talked about was, have you ever taken a DNA test related to health or fitness? Good. 63% of you said yes. 33% said no, but I'm interested. That's why you're here. I'm grateful for you. And 4% said no, and I'm skeptical. Perfectly fine. I'm a skeptic by nature of so many things in life. So I feel you on that one. Number 3 was, what aspect of athletic performance are you most curious about? Almost all of you said all of the above. So we had recovery and injury risk. We had strength and power potential, as well as endurance capacity. And most of you are of the mind of like wanting a little bit of benefit in all these different areas. So definitely, I'm the same way. Hybrid athletics is where it's at. Number 4, how much do you believe genetics influence athletic ability? Most of you, 52%, said very significantly. I'm in agreement. 38% said somewhat, 2% said not much, training is everything, and 8% said not sure. This is where we talk about nature versus nurture, right? It's like definitely your genetics are going to play a role, but that epigenetic input is what we have control over. So I like to put our focus right there. And so I think all those are actually correct in and of themselves. Last but not least, is would you consider using genetic insights to adjust your training or your recovery? And most of you, 54% said absolutely, 44% said possibly with more information. That's why we're here. 2% said unlikely, totally fair. It's a free country. And 0% said no. All right. Well, it sounds like we got us a mixed bag, Ms. Bruno.
We do, but I like it because one size doesn't fit all. One exercise routine doesn't fit all. And that's what I love about working out and getting healthy because it looks different for everybody. And how everybody is moving is way okay. To me, I'm like, just move. I'm so glad you're moving. So I think it's great. And I love that people, even the ones that say they're non-athletes and you're on here, no, I appreciate it. And if you're out walking and you're putting the work in to get up and move every day, don't cut yourself short. Don't cut it short. You're strong and you're able and blessed if you can get up and walk. I literally take a walk. So don't sell yourself short. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, and it also starts where it starts, right? Like, I don't recommend anybody jump headfirst into a really bombastic catabolic weight training program if you've never experienced it before. This is one of those things that you want to sort of pyramid up to. But I'll tell you, like anybody that's really at that starting point, if it's going for a walk, it's going for a walk. I mean, we've both experienced injuries and things, I'm sure, and you get kind of broken all the way down to that period. All you can do is walk, or all you can do is lay there and do eyeball exercises if it's all the way down to that. But as long as you're actively trying to get into your body and increase the functionality of it, I'm all for it. And there's a devil at every level, as they say.
I agree. Yeah, totally. Totally.
Let's go over a couple more of these genes just because it's relevant, and it seems like a lot of people do have their DNA 360 handy. So if you do, someone in the comments wanted me to reiterate quickly what I just mentioned. So 9p21, it's actually not a SNP, it's a locus. That one will be in your cardiovascular report, and that's all about endothelial density. And to me, that's one of the primary genes that I look at for anybody who's going to engage in fairly heavy cardio. The next one that I look at personally, I'm sure Felicia does the same thing here, is to do with the clearance of free radicals, right? So one of the great things about exercise is that as soon as you start exercising, you increase the energy demand of your body. So one of the things that happens there is that we increase mitochondrial density, right? The body goes, we need more energy. How are we going to get it? Well, let's create more of these factories where it's actually constructed in the first place. So it's a great way to increase mitochondria. But just know that every moment that your mitochondria are making ATP, they're making energy, they're also making that byproduct. There's waste products that come alongside the creation of energy. Those waste products would be free radicals like reactive oxygen species. So these are free radicals. I mean, they're going to act as a toxin within the mitochondria. And if you start to gum up your mitochondria with toxins, it's going to manifest as fatigue. It's going to make it way harder for you to recover, right? So that's why this is one of the genes listed as well in the hormone, fitness, and body type reports, because it's going to influence your recovery, your ability to do that. So the pathway I'm referencing here is called SOD2, superoxide dismutase. So if you start to break down the names of some of these genes, it'll start to make sense. Superoxides, right? We're talking about oxidants. Dismutase, meaning like get rid of it, right? So superoxide dismutase, that's what that first gene is. And SOD2, what it does is it's a clearance mechanism for free radicals at the level of the mitochondria. The more that we do cardio and these kinds of things, we're creating more and more free radicals. And if you have a suboptimal SOD2 pathway, that's going to represent an inability to clear them at a fast rate. When I say suboptimal, I mean it's got a T allele in there, at least one. Justin has two, so I've got to be really careful with tons and tons of cardio. And I always put interventions in place there. There's two movers to how that gene pathway works. There's SOD2, and then there's a second mover called GPX, glutathione peroxidase. And that's really the second half of the clearance mechanism. So SOD2, it soaps and it scrubs the dishes. GPX rinses them and clears them out, right? You don't want to eat with dirty dishes. So you need both of those to be in relative balance and hopefully at the same speed. If they're not, I would really recommend being careful when it comes to a lot of cardiovascular activity. And you may want to add in some clearance mechanisms like some hydrogen water, some sauna use, some carbon 60. I'm not allowed to recommend peptides, but do some research on that one. What do you go towards, Felicia, when it comes to recovery? Like I noticed lately, like people don't recover as well as I think they used to. I think it's because of all the toxins in the environment. But have you noticed like a trend with that? People not recovering from exercise sessions?
Oh yeah. It's talked about all the time. If you look at it, it's always how can I recover? How can I recover easier? How can I recover faster? Um, and there's so much out there. I think you have to look at what's best for you. But I like active recovery. That's how I recover best. And with that, I mean in between my weightlifting on a day, I am going to do something active, but I'm going to do something that gets my blood flowing, but I can still sit here and have a conversation with you. So I'm not going to be like, it's not an exasperating, I can't catch my breath. It is going to be an easy, and I'm talking just get your blood flowing, like yoga or swimming or a walk or a bike ride. I have a Peloton bike. I ride it all the time. And sometimes I do a recovery ride, which is a very slow paced ride, just a leisurely gonna ride. And what it does is it brings blood to your muscles. It helps give movement and gets rid of that, what a lot we consider DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. So it's going to get rid of a lot of that. So I tend to lean more to old school. I know that there's a lot of stuff, as you and I've always talked about. We got the cold plunge and we've got the red lights, and I have done some of those. I think, and I'm not against any of them. Know your genes, but um, benefits, yes, benefits. For me, just seems like active recovery works best for me. But when I get to somebody who's like really extreme, they've overtrained, I literally say, hey, take a day off. I don't want you very little as possible. You just really need to recover. And some of my clients who push themselves, who don't methylate well and who have that, I have to really be like, I'm serious. Don't today. take off. And then their head, they're like, but if I do, I'm losing traction. If they do, I'm gonna fall behind. I'm not gonna, I'm like, no, your body's telling you you need to recover and it will thank you. And you actually come out stronger on the backside of this. Just give it time.
Yeah, I mean, your results will literally be better. Like I have this concept that I work on that's like rest days versus recovery days. And it's not really the same thing. You know, like people talk about rest days. I have friends that will like take a rest day and it means that it's Call of Duty tournament day and it's like cheat meal all day. And it's like, if you're really dedicated and devoted to this, there's a time to do the Call of Duty tournaments. I'm not going to hate on that. But when I approach a recovery day, I don't consider it to be like just a total lay on the couch kind of a day. Really, for me, it's the stacking of as many modalities as I possibly can to actively get that parasympathetic stimulus, right? Like really get the nervous system restored. So I'll stack all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's a great day to schedule a massage. That's a great day to do a longer yoga workout. Maybe hop in a cold plunge, maybe hop in the sauna, drink some amino acids, right? Like you can target the nutritional pathway and a lot of different hormetic pathways. We finally got the sun out here where I am in BC, Canada. And I'll tell you, my recovery days, when I can get some sun tanning and some grounding in, that's huge because it really activates hormones. It activates vitamin D, which is highly anti-inflammatory. It increases nitric oxide, which helps dilate blood vessels and deliver nutrients all over your body. So for me, it's like if I'm going to take a recovery day, I'm not doing that much just laying around. I mean, some, but I'm really doubling down on those days on the foam rolling, the breath work. I have these little things that are called Levide cupping therapy. Have you ever messed around with the cupping, you know, like the suction cups?
Yeah, I've gotten a massage and I love cupping. Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. And the ones I have like little infrared stuff built into it, so it kind of heats up the area at the
Oh,
same
that's
time.
cool.
Yeah, it leaves like a little circular bruise on you for a couple
Yes.
of days,
Yeah.
but it really relieves the tension in there. Like I found it to be pretty useful. And lately, what I've been doing is I've been using I have this big PEMF mat, which I love PEMF. I think it's great for dealing with inflammation and things. I've been doing yoga right on my PEMF mat. And the thing's like skookum and it's filled with amethyst crystals and all this stuff for
That's
negative
cool.
ions. Yeah, and I found it to be actually a really good tool for doing yoga on. You mentioned yoga. You know, I think that doing prolonged stretches with like really paying attention to deep, long exhales, I think that's really useful for activating parasympathetic activity. What's your approach to like flexibility and mobility?
You know, it's funny. I talked with a doctor who is not really into stretching, and I said, "Well, but stretching to me is to me it's very important." And a lot of people, I know a lot of men don't like to stretch. Um, you like to, but most men, like my husband, he hates to stretch. He thinks it's useless. But I really think that there's a lot of value to it. There's a lot of value. I feel so much more better after I've stretched. I feel so much more even awake. It's kind of like when you sit in a car all day, you know, you're driving, you sit in a car and you get out and first thing you do is stretch, right? Because you kind of wake up and you're kind of coming back to life again, get some blood flow, some oxygen, take some deep breaths. I think it's very, very important. So I know that you read articles kind of like anything in working out, the pros and the cons, and you have the naysayers and the ones who jump up and down and scream and go, "This is the only way." But I am for it. That's my opinion. I'm very much for stretching.
I agree. I also think that like tight hip flexors in and of itself is kind of a modern problem. And it actually does interfere with like hormone communication throughout the body. And it makes sense because like were you to kind of dissect, you know, ancestrally how our ancestors would have rested, they probably weren't in like chairs with armrests and you know what I mean, sitting in the way we do for prolonged periods of time. And once you tighten up those hip flexors, which are only like this big, they're really small little um, like they're not a big muscle group or anything like
Mhm.
that. But once they tighten up, remember that's what connects your upper and your lower body. So if you want fluent communication from upper and lower body, those hip flexors are actually really relevant there. And your spine matters a lot as well. Like if you have compressed vertebra, it will actually interfere with nerve communication. There's a lot of kind of electricity that communicates with your adrenal glands and different things right in your spine. So to me, I mean, if you just have a simple stretching routine, can actually go a long way with that. If you've ever had DOMS, to what Felicia just mentioned there, I think stretching will also help to kind of flush out the lactic acid and really restore nutrient delivery to that muscle. So a basic yoga routine is definitely one of my kind of priorities now on my recovery days.
I totally agree. One thing I love about stretching is you can really get good at stretching. So like if you're a newbie and you reach down to try to touch your toes and you're like this far off the ground, just keep doing it. And your body will thank you, and eventually you can go farther down and farther down to pretty soon you're touching the floor. So I know there's a lot to it. There's a lot more of like you just said, the muscle recovery and the blood flow and the moving around. We were built to move. We were built to move. We weren't built to sit in chairs all day, unfortunately. So, yes, high on the list, stretching is mine.
Yeah, it improves the kinetic chain. That's just how we're designed. We're designed to move with fluency from the ground up. Let's talk a little bit about some more of these genes as well, because I've had some pretty good needle moving moments with patients when I've realized that they have a suboptimal just genetic androgen receptor. That's another gene that I look at. There's actually two. So there's one called AR, simply androgen receptor, and then there's another one called AndroX. And it really plays a role in your ability to like bind androgens. If you're not familiar with what androgens are, that would be like dihydrotestosterone and these anabolic hormones. They're androgenic, right? So if something is aromatase, that's estrogen. Something that's androgenized, that's more, testosterone, growth hormone, that kind of a thing. And some people genetically, they just don't have a very good receptor for androgens, and it makes it a lot harder to build muscle, because androgens play a huge role in your capacity to build muscle. That's why people do steroids. I mean, frankly, right? That's just the intake of exogenous androgens, and there you go. You've just double, triple, quadrupled the amount of androgens present in your body. But we can see genetically, it's in your hormone fitness and body type report, the androgen receptor. And if that's suboptimal, we have to find some ways to kind of activate it. And you're not going to love the way that I activate this, people in the audience, but I activate that by increasing the volume of leg exercises that I make people do. Leg day, leg day, leg day. It's one of those things.
Don't
It's
ever
torturous.
skip it. Yeah.
Never skip it. In fact, do more of it, especially if you're suboptimal for AR or for AndroX. But I'll tell you, I've had great success with that with patients. I just said, do your normal workout split that you're going to do, but the alteration we're going to make is every one of these workouts, you're going to start with some squats and you're going to do some walking lunges. Boom. I'm saying within a month, they've had like notable differences just from hitting that extra leg. Legs are a really big muscle group as well, right? It's what's called compound lifting, right? So where more than one joint is moving at the same time. And there's a direct correlation, by the way, between your quadricep muscle, right, and longevity. If you have bigger quads, it actually directly causes you to live longer. There's studies that have been done on that. And it's, I think, to do with the mitochondrial density as well in that muscle. But there's tons of androgen receptors in your legs, right? So you're going to get a way bigger hormone pulse from doing leg day than you are from doing arm day. You can do a squat session and then hit arms after, though, and you're probably going to get an even better response out of your arms. What are some of the little like tactics that you do for people who have difficulty putting muscle on? Do you have any like special hacks or anything you put them on?
I try to get you. It's funny you bring up that gene because I look at it too, because it'll tell me, are they going to be a power lifter? Are they going to be a sprinter? Are they going to be able to, lift super, super heavy, or are they going to have to do everything in moderation? So I love that gene. Yeah, depending on the goal, and if we want to put build some muscle really quick, and you have the gene that can do that. I do like one-legged split squats. Like I think something like that. And in between, like, okay, so let's go do some squats. Give me 10 squats, full body, and then come over here and do me one-legged. Just, and so I put it back to back. and then I let them rest. So I try to put in movements that work the whole body, but then all of a sudden you're going to do something that just like sh just flow in through blood, just like rush blood into the muscle and just really just make it explode. So that then the end of the recovery, you break all that muscle down, it builds back up, we get bigger. So over time, yeah, you have super good results. Super. People are like, wow, I could really tell in my legs that they're a lot stronger. And you're dead on. If you if you lose your leg strength, it's bad. It's a bad thing. And yes, I just got to read an article not too long ago about if you have lower muscles in your legs, you're guaranteed to live longer because they're a bigger muscle. And there's what's going to get us around and they're what's going to get us walking and the things that we do. And if you've ever noticed somebody who can't get up and walk, it's disheartening, but you see sometimes the deterioration is really quick, once their legs are gone. So yeah, don't ever skip leg day. Ever.
Yeah, definitely not. And sarcopenia, right, like the loss of muscle mass as you age, is one of the bigger factors for frailty and ultimately for premature death. I mean, when you start to lose that vitality, it's really a big problem. We need that bone density. We need the muscle mass. We need tendon strength. We need all of these things to age gracefully. So having just a little bit of a resistance training program can go a really long way. It's an anti-aging superhuman hack as far as I'm concerned, just to move some weight around. Like the benefits are absolutely endless. um, I'll share a similar strategy that I do as far as like in between sets for athletes that's really time efficient is I like to add in some sort of plyometric element for athletes as well. Like as far as like having someone finish a set of squats and then just do a couple of box jumps or something like that. Really, the mitochondrial activation associated with jumping, and I mean, you can do ski jumps, like you can go side to side, front, back, vertical, whatever you want, but it really gets that springboardy effect into your legs as well. So for athletes, to me, the definition of an athlete, you have to be able to have some level of capacity to jump. Jumping is one of those primal movements that we've always had to do to be able to navigate our environment, to get away from predators. Like you should have some capacity to jump if you're an athlete, in my opinion. So I've always done that. If you're going to do like any kind of just typical resistance training movement, adding in a little bit of jumping in there can really activate those mitochondria. And mitochondria are what give you the power, right? Like power output for athletes is dependent on mitochondrial density as well as mitochondrial quality, right? Like you have to have good quality and numerous mitochondria to be able to generate power. So any power athlete, right? If you're a power lifter, if you're, I mean, even a bodybuilder, really, you would want a certain amount of power to do that. You're going to want to pay attention to your mitochondria and you're going to want to take care of your mitochondria as well. You need it. Like we've talked on this webinar before about all these things that upregulate mitochondria. And one of the things that it really translates into is athletic performance. So I think mitochondria is like a big deal. So once again, look at that SOD2 pathway because it's really important.
Huge. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And then with knowing that also, then you can set up your workouts regarding do you have fast twitch muscle fibers or do you have slow twitch? Because you work them both differently. So, a football player, we're going to do everything speed. Everything is going to be fast twitch muscle. We're trying to get them right out the block and speed. And then if you have a marathon runner, we're going to train them through slow twitch, right? So you're going to know what to do and when to do it.
Yeah, and you can also create like a hybrid between fast and slow twitch. Like you can be a hybrid kind of a specimen if you pay attention to both of those. It's funny when I got my strength and conditioning certificate back in the day, I had like there was like an exam at the end where you had to write it was like a practicum kind of a thing. And it was like choose a type of athlete and describe the muscle fiber activation and the different things. I chose mixed martial arts because I like fights. I mean, that's just what I watch. That's what I do. I like training boxing and different things. And I was talking about it because I said this is absolutely hybrid because fighting requires strength at certain times. Then they'll kind of reset and they're bouncing around and it's aerobic in that moment. Then they'll press forward and have a burst of aggression and it's very anaerobic. And I was talking about hybrid athletics, and it's always been a fascination of mine, like slow twitch, fast twitch. And then there's actually something called type 2C muscle fibers, which is like a combination of slow and fast. And to me, that gives you the best because you can activate explosive power, but then you can also go for a while. You know what I mean? So it's like you're not necessarily a marathon runner, nor are you a power athlete, but meeting somewhere in the middle there has always been kind of a cool concept to me. And the way that you train can create that, right? If you do intelligent
Oh,
cardio, intelligent weightlifting, you can build whatever type of athlete you want with the right toolkit.
yes, 1000%.
Let's talk a little bit about nutrition because that's going to matter here as well. How do you approach it if like the difference between someone trying to really like lose weight versus someone who's trying to build muscle? Like, what are your main kind of differentiating factors there?
Um, what that goes again, and I usually look at give me at least 3 days of your a food program. What do you eat within 3 days? I need everything from the water you intake to everything you stick in your mouth. I don't even care if it's like I had one bite of a Snickers. I need to know. And then from there, I can kind of pair what you're eating with what we're going to do. So if it's somebody obviously that wants to build muscle, I nutritionally would say we got to up the protein. It's got to be more calories than you're eating. But if you're trying to lose weight, we're still gonna eat clean, but probably not as much as if we're gonna try to gain 10 pounds of muscle, because there's a line in there. But then it also goes to I want you to be happy with it. There's nothing worse than a diet that you fell at because it was miserable. That, I some of these diets they just set you up for failure. I'm like, okay, everything in moderation. So you have to look at the big picture and what makes you happy and what works best for you, you know? And your genes will tell you that, really.
Yeah, they'll help you to dial in the macros for sure. And I'll say I've always prioritized protein when it comes to weight loss as well, as far as like which macro you should put your energy towards. Especially because I mean, there's something called the thermic effect of feeding, which is like it actually takes a certain amount of calories to burn protein, to break down protein. So it almost reduces it. It's like a gross intake versus a net usage almost. So, if you're trying to lose weight, I mean, that's a great strategy is to make sure that the majority of your plate has a dose of protein on there,
Okay.
and you don't have to go out of your way with lots of fat or lots of carbohydrates, especially if they're starch related. And when it comes to the genes, I mean, we look at that TCF7L2 gene. That's one of the best ones for understanding your insulin mechanism. Some people are just genetically dysregulated for insulin, and for those people it's a pain in the ass, frankly, to figure out macros because like everything can cause an insulin spike in excess, right? So too much fat can actually cause an insulin surge. Too many starches, and even to an extent, too much protein could have that response. But what I would say is that for those people, I mean, one of the things I do is I moderate blood glucose. So little strategies, right? Like I'll have them take a little shot of apple cider vinegar prior to a meal because it not only increases hydrochloric acid, which helps you break down your protein, but it's got like a blood glucose disposal agent kind of property to it. So you're getting dual benefits with something like apple cider vinegar. The downside is it tastes awful, and so some people
I
can't
was just
stomach
fixing
it.
to say, you chase that? You have to chase that with
No,
something.
I don't, but I'm
I've
super
tried
healthy.
it, but I have to like, yeah, that's a bold move. It's you gotta like I gotta chase it, but it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Well, some you can get soft gels and whatever too if you really need to. Like that's available out there. Or like Ceylon cinnamon is another great, ingredient for blood glucose disposal. So it's like if you're gonna have a big old smoothie, just adding in some of these ingredients can help you to make so you don't get as much of a surge there. So those are useful strategies. Cold exposure as well, if you're set up for it and you can handle it. Cold exposure is actually a needle mover when it comes to managing blood glucose. And really, for the whole rest of the day, if you were to start your day with a little cold plunge, which a lot of athletes probably should, because it also helps with inflammation and epinephrine, norepinephrine, mitochondrial density. It actually thickens your veins, right? So it can help with capillary density and things like that as well. But an interesting thing it does is it helps you to regulate blood glucose. So if you're dysregulated, it makes it easier to orchestrate your macros because your blood sugar is a little bit more under control via a pathway that has nothing to do with food, right? Like you're getting colds, right? So it's kind of an interesting little modality there. Um, if someone is totally suboptimal for a certain macronutrient, like what do you do? Like, because normally a bodybuilder, right? If you were training any bodybuilder that you don't have their genes handy, I mean, I'm sure that the typical bodybuilding diet, I mean, it's worked for so many people, chicken and rice and what have you. What are some of the ways that you've kind of integrated the genetic knowledge into your clients now versus before, like before you had the genes handy?
Yeah. Okay. So before I had the jeans handy, typical bodybuilder diet is chicken, broccoli, rice, and it's all weighed out. And it's usually, for me, it was 3 ounces of protein, 2 ounces of carbs, and 2 ounces of vegetables. That's the way it worked. There was like no exceptions unless I was carb loading or I was carb depleting or protein may go up to 4 ounces depending on what, if it was leg day. Knowing the genes now can totally tell me, is this person, do they hang on to carbs? Are they estrogen dominant? Do they, do they carry more test? Then it kind of puts everything back into play as far as, okay, well, if they're estrogen dominant, carbs love them, you know? So depending on how many carbs they're eating, they could be destroying their diet thinking, well, I'm having some carbs, but okay, what kind of carbs are you having and how much are you having? Because you're estrogen dominant or and your body doesn't do well with carbs, it totally is a game changer of how you would set up a diet and how you learn as a person. They're like, oh, okay, I can still have carbs. It needs to be certain kind of carbs. It needs to be complex carbs. Not talking starchy carbs. I'm not talking donuts, and I'm not talking, all the fun stuff. Basically, I'm talking the rice, the red potatoes, the sweet potatoes, the oats, those kind of things. But yeah, it does make a difference in the portions that you're going to get on for what you want the outcome to look like. Because it all goes together, right? I mean, if you train and you don't eat, it's not going to work. Also, sleep and supplements come in there with that. But too biggie. Our body is fueled by food, and what kind of food that we put in our body is how it grows and how we function. So once you learn it, it's a game changer and take some of the frustration out of those who are like, I just can't get the needle to move. I just can't, nothing's working. So,
Yeah, and what about like timing of carbohydrates? Like, do you have any strategies for that? Because I'll share what I do. Like, I have kind of a moderate genotype for digesting starches, and I also have a moderate genotype for digesting fatty acids. So I'm not necessarily laid out to have like a full ketogenic approach, nor a full bodybuilding diet approach. So what I arrive at is like some sort of a hybrid. I'll either like carb cycle, carb front load, carb back load when I'm really in a high state of training, like when I'm really doing a lot of crazy training between lifting and boxing and the different things that I do, usually I'll do like a nightly refeed. So I'll be in a state of like, not ketosis, but like nutritional fatty acid oxidation all throughout the day. And I don't really have any appreciable amount of carbohydrates until the evening. And I typically do a movement session in the morning, but an actual workout more in the evening, like between 4 and 6. So what I've been doing is I time most of my starches for just the end of the day, that last meal. It's post workout and it's also the evening meal. So it's kind of a backloading approach. And I found it to be pretty useful. I mean, I'm having like probably, I don't know, 1 to 200 grams of carbohydrates with my evening meal. And the insulin goes up and then it comes back down. And the next thing you know, I'm kind of yawning and I'm like ready to go to bed. So it's pretty useful for even the serotonin pathway. If you're dysregulated there, that's in your mood and behavior report. So it's called 5-HTT-LPR. So it's actually good for different kind of brain chemicals as well. What do you do? Like, are you more in favor of like a carb cycling approach, or do you front or backload for athletes?
I like to do the carb cycling. That's kind of my world. But now for women who are wanting to lose weight, my clients who want to lose weight, I usually have their carbs. Protein is a must. Carbs in the morning, carbs at lunch, and then I don't have any carbs. I cut their carbs for the evening. It seems to help. Again, it all kind of depends on what is our goal, how much weight are we trying to lose? How do they feel? Um, and how's the recovery? It all kind of goes into play because without carbs, you have no energy. I mean, it's so I'm real mindful of how are they feeling because again, at the end of the day, you don't want to be like, oh my gosh, I'm just miserable and I feel sluggish. And so I keep all that into play. So it really kind of depends on the client. The answer to your question, what does the athlete look like? What does the person look like? And what are we trying to accomplish is how I'm gonna, do that. With me, carb loading, I put in extra carbs instead of 2 ounces, it may be 2.5 ounces, 3 ounces, and I'll do it every single meal, even all the way up till I go to bed. And then carb depleting, yeah, I'll just start winging it back. And it might be a fourth of a cup of rice. And it's not a lot, but it gets the job done. It fuels me and gets me to where I need to be.
Absolutely. Cheat days. What is Felicia Bruno's take? I'm curious.
I thought we've talked about this. Mm, I I'm kind of ashamed. And I will say my cheat day for years has been a large cheese pizza with pineapple. I ate the whole thing, the whole entire pizza, a large. And I'm not gonna, about a year and a half ago, I said, no woman my age needs to be eating a large pizza. I'm 57. Nobody my age needs to be eating a large pizza on Sundays. That's the only day I eat it. And that's the only time I gouge in carbs. I mean, you know, so I've gone to a medium. So my cheat day is a medium pizza. And I feel just as guilty, but and I'm telling you, I don't share. My husband has to get his own. But the the only great thing with that is next day is leg day, out the roof. My
Yeah.
workouts are phenomenal because of the carb loading I did. But that's it. Then it's back to, I mean, during the week, I really am a clean eater during the week. So I can do that and I'm not the next day like, okay, well, I'll just go get a hamburger. I don't do that. So, but I do believe in cheat days. I think that for me, they're very important. I have clients that say I can't do cheat days. I have to be strict or I fall, and I get it, and that's fine too. But if you're disciplined enough and you can do it, that's my cheat day. What is yours? What's your guilty pleasure?
So definitely pizza as well. But I will say, I never mess around with a full cheat day. It's more of a cheat meal. It's
Meal.
like, yeah, it's
Yes.
like 2 hours of me being an asshole, but I don't do the whole day, right? Because like I have no desire to wake up and have my breakfast be made out of poison. Like it's more like the evening on a Saturday or something like that. I normally spar on Sundays. We do like boxing sparring. So I'm fully aware that I'm going to wake up first thing tomorrow morning and literally get in a fist fight with someone who's good at it. So I carb up on those days. But I'll tell you, one of the more positive decisions I've made with regard to that is that I've kind of steered myself towards making my own cheat meals and at
Oh,
least being
nice.
somewhat in control of the ingredients. Like I'll go to the store and get like the best sourdough bread I can find and organic tomato sauce. My lady's Italian and her aunt lives right across the street from us. So just old school Italian, like makes the greatest tomato sauce you can imagine. So
Wow.
I use that and get some, organic veggies and lactose free cheese. And I'll make my own now for the most part. And I'll tell you, I do feel better the next day when I do that. Like I don't wake up the next day feeling like what happened last night? Like what did I do
Yes.
to myself? But it's still a calorie dense meal and a carb heavy meal. But just once a week, I do think that as a refeed, especially if you are an athlete that's really going hard, you're going to want to give yourself that caloric surplus at some point. We can't be in a deficit all the time and be really training hard. You're going to sooner or later burn yourself out. And I like it as a recovery day strategy, like you mentioned, prior to like a hard workout. You're going to use them up, right? So it's an appropriate time to do such a thing. But just yeah, then once it's Monday again, you better get back on track or we're going to start to lose momentum. Fitness is a momentum game. So make sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I know that we're getting to the top of the hour here. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of cover before we hit the Q&A section? I mean, fitness has so many moving parts to it.
You know, I will say when it comes to fitness, it takes all the parts, and I think I mentioned it earlier. It takes the working out and it takes the food, how you refuel your body. It also takes sleep. You got to recover. And then it takes supplements. What you're fueling your body with what you don't get. It takes a lot. So I've always said, show yourself some grace. If you don't, if you're like only got like so many hours last night, well, okay, it's okay. Just tomorrow's a different day. We're gonna start fresh again and get back on. Yeah, when it comes to workout, there's a lot of moving parts to it, but they all pay off. That's the biggie. So you know, that's my spiel as far as like sleep's so important. I can't say enough about sleep, and I know this is about workout, but it goes with it. That's when your body recovers. That's when it rebuilds and kind of like washes, it's like a brain wash every night. You just kind of wash it all off, and the next day is a brand new day.
Yeah, it's like a reset button, and I
Mhm.
I really on these webinars, I always make points about homeostasis, and bringing your body back into that state of balance. And really, I mean, like you and I have had some great conversations about overtraining and kind of what our takes are on that. To me, it's about that homeostatic control. Like there's a gentleman that I'm a big fan of named Paul Chek, and he talks about working in versus working out. Working out being like, that hard catabolic, just grinding and beating the crap out of your body. There's a place for that. There's a time for that. Athletes have to do that. But then we want that working in, right? We want that yin energy. We want to restore and replenish and rebuild. So to me, sleep is one of those major movers in that equation. That's when your body releases those anabolic hormones and does that cellular detox. And without it, you're going to burn out. And by the way, you're probably also going to store more body fat if you're not sleeping well. You're way more likely to injure yourself. Your joints are going to hurt. I mean, there's so many things that you need that reset button for. So I'm in agreement, like this is a momentum game and we have to make sure that we're restoring. We need to actively get that parasympathetic nervous system engaged. One of my strategies actually post workout lately, I've actually been paying attention to this. Everybody knows I don't shut up about breath work. I'm always talking about it. I think it's really valuable. After I do a hard session now, I actually take a few minutes to just sit down and just like do slow exhales and bring my body back down. And I've noticed a pretty big difference in my recovery. And I recommend athletes do that, especially if you're one of these 2-a-day people, right? That first workout, you better be doing something to engage your parasympathetic nervous system after, or that second workout, you're going to be going into it already taxed and already cortisol heavy and stuff. So to me, post workout, if you can find a way to really just kind of disengage and get your thoughts back down, we want to gear up when it's time to gear up, and we want to gear down when it's time to gear down. So pay attention to all of it because your results are going to be dependent on your ability to control your nervous system. So that's been my direction lately. Those kind of
No,
recovery.
that's really good. And you say your breath work. Sometimes I know that we're so busy during the day and you don't sit and have, just like breathe, like really open your lungs. So I would just a little thing when I go to bed at night, right before I like roll over to go to sleep, I will literally lay there and take 3 deep breaths. And I lay because you're relaxed, right? I'm relaxed, I'm in bed, I'm fixed to go to sleep. And I breathe. I breathe in as big as I can. I mean, I even picture my lungs like I couldn't get enough air back in there. And then I let it out. And I do it 2 more times and it is amazing. I'm just like, it kind of just, like you said, it just kind of resets. It kind of gets your mind rep for the night, and it relieves a lot of stress too. It really just kind of, have you ever been like watching TV and you can feel like, oh my gosh, just relax. You're just sitting in a chair and you're like, relax. This kind of does that. Breath work, I agree with you, is so important. And it does a lot of stuff and it's so easy because that's what we do all day. We breathe. But if you really
Yeah.
just take some really deep breaths, it's not like you don't have to have any equipment, you don't have to go anywhere. Just do it.
Yeah, definitely. If there's anybody in the audience that's an endurance athlete as well, I mean, that's a way to increase technically VO2 max and lung capacity without you having to engage in yet another catabolic session, right? So it's not that the only way that you can increase VO2 max is via running. If your breath is really shallow, right? You can actually work on just that, but you can be in a pretty much totally rested state, right? So you're laying down, your body's in a parasympathetic state, you're resting, but you're just focusing on the breath and really getting that diaphragm opened up. Just that can help improve your cardiovascular capacity. So definitely do it. It's free. I'll quickly recommend a channel that I love. It's called Breathwork Beats. I've shouted them out on here before. We're not affiliated yet, but it's great, right? They have hundreds of videos ranging from like 5 minutes up to an hour. You can get crazy with breath work if you want to, and it's a great strategy. On your recovery days is a good time to do like the longer sessions, a good like 45 minutes of breathing. That'll reset your nervous system in a way that nothing else will. It's a whole different entry into the body. So get crazy with it if you want to. Just don't do it while you're driving, or don't do it while you're in a meeting or something like that. Like you'll get lightheaded. But take control of your breath. There's a direct window into your nervous system right there. So that's definitely
That's
a good
cool. Yeah,
recommendation.
noted.
All right, let's smash through some of these questions here. Looks like we've got a few. The first one is from Tom. Hello, Tom. He says, are there any epigenetic treatments that are in the works for sports injuries, such as repairing a medial meniscus of the knee or cartilage around the bone to avoid knee replacement? I'll give a couple of my thoughts on that, and then Felicia, feel free to jump in if you have any thoughts on like knee rehabilitation. One of the primary strategies I have for knee health, now you're already injured, Tom. This is just something I'm saying for knee health, is actually backwards walking. Like there's a gentleman called Knees Over Toes guy, and he's like the man. Like you should follow him. He's got a lot of great strategies and different things he does. But every day I spend 5 to 20 minutes walking backwards on the treadmill. And the way that it positions the knee over the toe, and it kind of just like causes knee extension without any real tension, but it's over and over and over again because you're walking, it really restores a lot of blood flow into the knee. So it's great for strengthening up the cartilage and the surrounding areas there. So definitely strategies like that are awesome. Anytime that you squat, I recommend having your toes pointed just slightly outwards because your knees are going to follow your toes. So you want to make sure that they're jetting out, not ever in. Even with lunging, right? Like kind of have the knee aligned with the pinky toe a little bit there to keep them safe. Because you're already injured, Tom, I mean, I would definitely recommend a few strategies. I would recommend researching peptides. The meniscus is nowhere near as bad as the ACL or the LCL, the PCL. Like the knee's got quite a few different areas. If you wipe out all of the above, I mean, you're talking about a year worth of rehabilitation, but the knee tends to recover in the meniscus area a little bit quicker than that. But BPC 157 has got a lot of great healing potential. Do your research on that one. TB 500 is a great one. You can get it in oral format in the form of TB4 fragments, it's called. GHK copper peptide, great anti-inflammatory. All of those can be of use to do your research on. I recommend collagen, amino acids, right? You can use glutamine, any of these anti-inflammatories, right? Like curcumin and your fish oils. I actually use one called Fatty 15, which is like a new fatty acid that's been discovered, and it's really potent, like 3 times more potent than omega-3s for its anti-inflammatory action. Beyond that, I mean, it's your red light therapies, right? PEMF, anything that deals with that. I also recommend anything that kind of restores blood flow into the area, which would be like, using the cupping, using, some of these things that are really for activating all of the tendons and stuff surrounding the knee. Anything that targets the calf, the hamstring, and the quad, those are the 3 muscles that surround the knee. So anything you can do to activate those muscles without exacerbating the injury, definitely those would be the areas I would point you towards. Now, I'm not a doctor and I'm not your doctor, so this is not an official treatment plan. These are just suggestions for, things you can discuss with your doctor. Felicia, what do you think about knee rehab?
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up walking backward because that's exactly what I was going to say. When you mention that to a lot of people, they're like, huh? And I'm like, no, walking on a treadmill backwards. First of all, you can hang on. And yes, it does a lot of recovery, depending on how bad your knee is hurt, I do recommend squats, but I put my clients on, if you have access to like a TRX, something that hangs from the ceiling that you can hang on, so that when you squat, you're not going to fall down. You know what I'm saying? It depending on how much the pain is. That's so I would recommend that. Or if you're going to try squats, like sit to a chair. Like if you're going to squat to a chair, again, depending on what kind of pain you feel in your knees. Supplement wise, I have found incredible results with a fish oil that I found that's got polyphenols in it, which I have been blown away with it. It's actually, the brand is Enzino. I've been trying it, and I used to have not my knees aren't bad, but from lifting heavy, I couldn't lift what I used to. So I started taking this, and within 2 months, I'm I'm back to where I was lifting when I was competing. So I have had really good results with that. Again, I'm not a doctor either. These are just kind of results that are, that I have tried and I have done. I do the squats and the backward walking on my clients and have had good results. The supplement wise, that's just me saying that worked for me, and I found some really good benefits in it. The fish oil also helped me with some eyesight and my skin, and it's done a lot of things for me. But my knees was a biggie. When I tell you I couldn't lift, they hurt so bad I was wearing braces to do leg presses, and they're gone. So I don't know how bad your knees are. I hope those little trips or tricks help, and good luck with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that must be frustrating because I mean, it's every step you take is
Oh,
being impacted by that. So that's frustrating. But my other recommendation is to train what you can. Like if you're able to train shoulders and you're able to train arms and you're not going to compromise the knee by doing that, then I recommend doing what you can do. Definitely don't have this apocalyptic attitude about it to where it's like, well, I can't exercise because of my knee. Find what you can do and max out on that, because that way you won't lose nearly as much momentum. Maybe you're about to have the biggest arms of anybody in your gym, and that's great. Right? So try to have a positive
absolutely.
attitude. Yeah, PMA, right? Positive mental attitude. Okay, so I hope that helped, Tom. Let's move on to Jennifer. So Jennifer is curious about the 9p21 locus and the NOS3 genes and would appreciate a little bit more explanation. So, the 9p21, like I mentioned, it's a chromosomal locus and it really influences endothelial density, the toughness of the blood vessels. So when you go on your report, you'll see a number and then the letter G. That's how we measure that locus. So you can have anywhere from 0G all the way up to 6G. That's the spectrum that we're looking at, from 0 to 6. The most average kind of genotype with that would be 3G. And the more Gs that you have, the thinner and therefore more at risk to inflammation your cardiovascular system is. So I'm in a blessed group. I'm just going to go ahead and brag here for a second. I'm actually a 0G for 9p21. So my blood vessels are like rhino skin, elephant skin, like they're super duper tough and able to deal with that. But I know a lot of people that are 4, 5, 6G, and those are the people that need to be really aware and place as many interventions as possible into dealing with inflammation, right? Inflammation is really why that's representative of a red flag. If you have low inflammation, I mean, you can have 6G all day and not have it ever manifest as a cardiovascular event. But just understand we're talking about risk factors, risk management. So if you're 4, 5, or 6G, I definitely recommend paying attention and doing the things that you can to keep your cardiovascular system healthy. Infrared sauna is associated with a 40% reduction in mortality from cardiovascular issues. The omega-3s and the grounding and the cold and the this and the that. This transitions into that second one you mentioned because nitric oxide is very useful for the healing of that endothelium. So there's actually a bunch of nitric oxide genes. We look at the one NOS3. That's the one that's most associated with endothelial nitric oxide. We actually call it eNOS because of that. So if you have a suboptimal genotype for NOS3, it represents a reduced ability of your body to make nitric oxide. And bear in mind here, as you age, your body is naturally going to make less as it is. And nitric oxide, it dilates your blood vessels. That's what gives you that delivery. So a lot of athletes, they do things on purpose to dilate your blood vessels with nitric oxide. They'll use the citrulline, agmatine sulfate, ornithine, agmatine, arginine's another one, beetroot, watermelon. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. It also plays a big role in vitamin D, right? So if you look at your vitamin D pathway, I actually pair that conversation with the enos one because nitric oxide releases the internally stored vitamin D. So it's very important for lots of stuff. It's the third most abundant gas in your body. We need it for a lot of stuff. And by the way, circulation matters across the board for everything that we do. Circulation, your bloodstream is a delivery system for oxygen, nutrients, hormones. We need your body to be able to deliver blood everywhere. That's a really important part. That's why it's the bloodstream. It's there for the delivery. So nitric oxide directly implicates that if it's off. And I would recommend doing something to improve that. And that would be like the red light therapy is a great thing. Also, I mentioned earlier in the call, Cardio Miracle. That's to me the most well-rounded supplement I've seen. It actually, if you take it twice a day, which is the recommendation, it actually increases nitric oxide production for 12 full hours per dose. So if you do it twice a day, you're getting a full 24 hours of increased nitric oxide. And then they pair that with all kinds of healing anti-inflammatory nutrients like astaxanthin and grapeseed extract and CoQ10, a little dose of glutathione in there, and acetylcysteine. So it's first dilating your blood vessels by increasing nitric oxide, and then it's delivering all of these things that will help heal your endothelium. So anyone who has cardiovascular concerns, I would say that's a great supplement to consider. And when we pair it with your red light therapies, heat exposure, cold exposure, etc., you're going to be healing quite a bit. So check that out. And that's my best explanation of those two genes. So I hope that helped.
Nailed it. Nailed it, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, I was going to ask you, when you take those supplements, do you feel any different? Because I know a lot of clients always ask me, am I going to feel different? Am I going to feel different? Like when I'm taking it, kind of like, does it make you feel any different, or is it just pretty baseline?
Cardio Miracle does. Yeah. It's to me, so I have suboptimal vitamin D genetics as well. And I have like a moderate nitric oxide gene. So although I'm blessed with 9p21, this is a map and you can be optimal here and suboptimal there. I also have terrible mitochondrial detox. So like just those extra antioxidants and things I think help. Two things. One is appropriate, one is not. So the first one is that, increased energy levels, general vitality. I've noticed that since I've been on Cardio Miracle. I've been doing Cardio Miracle for probably 9 months straight or something like that. And the second one is all about boners, right? We know that nitric oxide, it dilates your blood vessels. That's what Viagra does. It gives you more nitric oxide. So erection quality is there as well. So now you all know that about me and we can move on.
Hey, noted for all men. There, go get you. You just, noted. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, well, we did a whole men's health summit about ED and just all bets were off ever since then. I have no qualms on these webinars about sharing personal information anymore. So
Oh,
I
that's
hope
how we
everyone.
know. That's
um,
how we know.
all right, so the next question is from Angel. I'm curious, as an aged athlete with joint injuries, what is the best alternative to doing explosive training like plyometrics to implement when you carry a power gene, berserker? So alternatives to explosive training, I mean, that really it depends, right? Because it's like volume of explosive training really, I would say, is the key mover there. And I don't know if you agree or not on that, Felicia, but it's like, to me, training can be a balancing act, and we have to make sure that we're still including what we can for the explosive training, but we don't want to overdo it because it is quite hard on the joints. One thing I'm a big fan of is actually, it's called a belt squat machine. Have you seen that? The belt
I
squat?
have one in my gym.
You do,
I
yeah.
love it.
All right, go ahead and explain why belt squatting is awesome and it's less crazy than doing barbell squats and box jumps.
Well, first of all, the contraption just is really cool. Those who don't know, it's a platform and you weight it up, but you put a belt around your waist, and then it hooks to a cable on the floor or on the machine. So you stand up, the weight comes off, and then you just squat. You literally do squats just like you were if you had a barbell on top of you, but you literally do squats. It takes pressure off your back. First of all, I find it's a lot more muscle. There's a lot more activation in my quads and in my glutes and in my hamstrings. The whole, because when you do a squat, we're working everything. So I notice a lot more activation in this. Also, it's kind of fun. It's really kind of fun. I also noticed that I could put on more weight because it's not on my shoulders. It's not on my shoulders and it's not on my back. So if I don't have a belt on, it can be kind of, scary, especially if you don't, to lift all this is all in one machine. So you're literally just squatting. It's very safe, very I recommend it if you have one. But the biggie is that it takes the pressure off your back.
Yeah, and you can do like really thousands of pounds worth of work without having the way that the weights are placed is just it's not pressing right down on your vertebra. So
Yeah.
it's you're getting the
Yeah.
same benefits, but it's not going down on your vertebrae and on your spine. It's kind of pulling you from the bottom instead. So fantastic, especially if you have any kind of issues. But to me, I mean, that gives you the ability to get that plyometric force as well, because you can put lighter weight on there and be a little bit more explosive, but you're not putting pressure nearly as much on your joints. Um, so that's always very useful. I mean, I do think that any and all recovery modalities that you can throw at that as well is useful. Um, for example, I mean, I'll lighten the load up and I'll do like a goblet squat versus a barbell squat, or I'll do instead of like a weighted lunge, I'll do just like more volume, but I'll do like walking lunges with no weight at all, but just longer. Like sometimes you have to up the volume if you can't increase the intensity as far as the actual poundages and the resistance that you're using. Um, but
That's exactly what I was going to say.
yeah,
Yeah,
like just
I
just
put
add
that on.
volume because there's more ways to increase intensity, right? Like you can also
Right.
slow down your reps, right? Like maybe
Low and controlled.
yeah, just instead of using more weight or something more intense that could be destructive to you, do lighter weight, but just like slow that down, that eccentric portion of the lift where you're lowering down, make that part take several seconds. And you could pause at the bottom and make it more intense that way. And then be explosive on the way up on that concentric phase of the lift. Um, there's a lot of ways to add intensity without making it really catabolic and doing crazy explosive training. But this is also where working in versus working out matters. If you try to dabble in the explosive days still, then I would recommend surrounding it with parasympathetic days, right? Like have a parasympathetic day before and a parasympathetic day after. Maybe have your cheat meal the night before, right? To make sure you're filled with glycogen and you're ready to go. Hit your mobility before you do it. Be hydrated. Have your minerals in. Do some breath work before you get in there, and then get in and get out, right? Do your explosive work, and then right back to parasympathetic mode to make sure everything else after that is about supporting your joints with the methods that we already talked about: red light therapy, counteracting inflammation, hot, cold, grounding, PEMF, etc. Um, that's all that I can think of. I think we nailed that one.
Yeah, you did. Good job.
So did you. It wasn't just me. Um, okay, so I hope that helps, Angel. Let's move on. Shelly. Hello, Shelly. What brand or model of mat do you use for yoga? So that was the PEMF mat that I was discussing. There's a lot of great brands out there, and I am not a Nazi when it comes to this. I just think that if you have a device and it's high quality, then that's the one for you. The one I personally use is called Higher Dose. They make a lot of cool stuff, like they do the red light masks and different things. I friggin' love it, man. It's 6 feet long, so it's the same height as me, which is nice because most yoga mats are like nowhere near as big as I am, so it's like not that useful. And it's really skookum. It's got a lot of good stitching in there, and it's actually got 3 modalities in one. So it's got PEMF built right into it, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And so that operates on kind of magnetism principles, and it can actually help to pull your brain into various states. So it has different options. It's got like an alpha state and a theta state and a delta state. So I'll use it for any number of things. Like I'll use the theta brainwave state for a nap because that's typically hovering you right above sleep. So I can get a little restorative session in that way. Or if I want a more energizing session, I'll put it onto the alpha state, and that's like my morning yoga kind of a state. I'll usually do that on alpha. So it's got PEMF, and then it heats up via infrared, and you can actually make it really friggin' hot, like too hot, right? So it's like if you really have a lot of pain, then you need the heat exposure there to get the heat shock proteins to help you recover. You can make it crazy hot. I just make it warm because it feels nice. You do the yoga on something that's already warm, you increase tissue temperature, and that helps prevent injury and it helps with the healing capacity there. So it heats up via infrared. That in and of itself helps with circulation and healing capacity. Then it's also got the negative ions built right in. I mentioned that it has like amethyst crystals and things in there as well. So it gives me a grounding effect as well. It plugs the electricity through these amethyst crystals and it creates its own negative ions because of that. So there you go. I'm getting PEMF, grounding, and infrared all at once. And the brand, I see someone mentioning in the comments, Higher Dose is what it's called. And we're not affiliated, but I just think they're the shit.
Can you get that off Amazon or anything, or is that strictly Hard Dose website?
I got it right off their website. You
I
may be able
I
to
was
get
just
it off
curious.
Amazon. Yeah, I'm not sure, but they're great, and I've had it for a year and a half now, and it's never screwed up on me. It's I've got tons of use, and PEMF is amazing if you have any kind of chronic pain issues, which I think most athletes. Let's just be honest that we're in pain most of the time. That's our lifestyle. We've chosen the pain of training over the pain of not being satisfied with our bodies, and I would take the pain of training 10 times out of 10. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do things to mitigate it, and PEMF is a great strategy there. So yeah, if you're interested in that Higher Dose, it's high quality and I recommend it.
Nice.
Let's move on. So Jennifer has a question. Can you share those genes for androgens again and their SNP name? So there's two of them. So AR is the main one. There's also another one called AndroX, but it's kind of a secondary mover there. So I don't really. AR is androgen receptor. That's like the primary mover there. AndroX matters as well, but I really put most of my focus on whether or not that AR gene is actually optimal or not. Uh, I think it's a. I always forget if it's a G and a T and a C and an A. There's so many different ones. Let me see. CC. Yeah, CC is optimal. So if you have a CC, the C allele is optimal. I believe the opposite would be T. So if you have T alleles, that means it's suboptimal. If you have C alleles for that AR, that means that it's optimal. So just have a look. That's going to be in your hormone fitness and recovery kind of a segment there. And it's called AR. So that's the androgen receptor. Have a look. And if it's suboptimal, you know what to do. Leg day, leg day, leg day. All right, we got a question about recomposition. That's a fun topic. So if you're not familiar, recomposition basically refers to body composition as far as doing it at the same time, right? So like a lot of bodybuilders will have a segment of months devoted to bulking and building muscle, and then they'll have a segment of months devoted to cutting and the reduction of body fat. Some people are interested in doing something of a hybrid strategy. I'll let you fill this one, Felicia, because I'm sure you got some knowledge. But she's asking about recomposition and how you would approach that. Like, how do you go about a recomp strategy with someone?
Well, obviously in bodybuilding, you have a off season and on season. And off season is your bulking season. On season is your shredding season. So yes, there as a competitor, yes, I do take a season and um I think it works very well if you don't mind getting a little bulky, you know. We're building muscle, so we're cramming everything we can. We're lifting heavy. We're eating the house out as far as we're making sure our protein levels are really, really high. We're spot on our cardio, which in then turns you are going to get a little bulky and not as and kind of fluffy looking. It's not going to be as pretty as the um cutting phase, but I do know that that's where your body grows. I do know that that's where you get stronger. I do know that that's where you're going to see the bigger results. So that, in fact, that's how these bodybuilders do this. This is how they get bigger every season, every year, is because you have to go through a bulking phase to get bigger. So it's a thing and it works. And then after you have reached that peak, then you're going to turn it around and you're going to shred it back off. So you're going to change your weightlifting. You're going to change how you weight lift. And the food, obviously, the portions are going to look different and the cardio is going to be more intense. So yeah, there is a method to it. And I do believe in it. In fact, it kind of, for me, it kind of shocks your body. It kind of puts it into a state of like, oh, well, okay, we're doing something different. Oh, and so it reacts. And then when you get to that point, you're like, okay, we're going to change again. The body goes, oh, okay. So we're doing something different again. And then the body, that needle moves and you have huge changes. So I totally am for it. It's not it's not fun if you don't, I mean, but I think you need to be with a trainer who knows when you're done and when you're not done, or do some research. I think you really need to do some research on what it is you're wanting to gain out of this and what it looks like for you.
Yeah, I agree, and it's definitely doable. It's one of those things that you make sure that you understand that you can do it. You just have to manipulate your training and manipulate your macronutrients and your recovery strategies and things. And you're probably going to end up in a pretty hybrid place. A little bit of wisdom from here, a little bit of wisdom from there. But I mean, you're going to be able to do it. And your genes are so valuable to know with that, as well as working with someone like Felicia, who's literally been competing and, doing it, putting on muscle, burning fat. I mean, bodybuilding is science, and y'all are scientists. And to me, like, bodybuilders know exactly what they're doing because the results are right there. When you're talking about stepping on stage against a whole bunch of other people who are preposterously jacked and lean, and just year round going through those cycles, these cycles of building muscle and then cutting off the fat, and building muscle and cutting off the fat, and living your whole life that way for years. Nobody knows how to do that better than bodybuilders. So they've got the science dialed in. So listen to Felicia, people.
Thank you. I don't claim to know it all, but I do have some experience in it.
We're all students, right? In our own
We
right.
all are. I learn
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, well, when you teach, you learn twice too. And that's one of the things I
Absolutely.
love about coaching. Like, coaching is almost more, it's as nourishing to me as it is to my clients. Like, literally, I'm
Yeah,
like, I feel nourished when I'm done coaching someone. It feels like it's just a good exchange and relationship. So it's like,
right.
coaching's the best. There's nothing better than coaching.
That's right. And coaches have coaches. I mean, trainers have trainers, and it just, we're all learning all the time.
Yeah, mentors and trainers, and like, we've all got it. So it's a community, right? That's what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
All right. So Josephine has a question. My body is catabolic. That's a
Mm.
problem. What can I do to prevent that? I'm a marathoner of late and need recovery days if I want to run well. I take BCAAs before and protein after her run. So 30 grams of protein. I have a couple thoughts on that. I'm sure you do as well, Felicia. I'll start. First of all, I'm not the biggest fan of branch chain amino acids. So branch chain amino acids are three, right? They're leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Those are 3 of 9 total essential amino acids, right? So essential means that your body doesn't make it on its own and you have to get it through exogenous sources. Non-essential amino acids means that your body makes it on its own. So 3 out of 9 total, it's not going to give you the best spectrum. Your body actually needs a lot of these other EAAs to produce neurotransmitters and activate other recovery pathways and things as well. So I actually would recommend, if you're open to switching up your supplement stack there, I would actually recommend looking at essential amino acids prior to your run, and you'll cover a lot more bases. So that would be like Kion makes a great one called Kion Aminos. That's Kion. There's another one called MAP Aminos. I know Dr. Laura loves the MAP Aminos as well. As long as you're getting all those essentials, it should cover more bases than the BCAAs. And you can get them, use electrolytes and stuff like that with it as well. As far as like being catabolic, I mean, I recommend having a look at some blood work for that to really know what that looks like inside of your body. Like, there's a thing called the DHEA to cortisol ratio, which is a great thing to look at and test, because DHEA is your primary anabolic hormone, anabolic activity in the body. We contrast that with the cortisol, and we want to look at what that balance really looks like. So if you have a practitioner who's really in the know, you can see what your DHEA to cortisol ratio is doing. And that's like a direct measurement of catabolic versus anabolic activity and kind of where you're at. Marathon running, I mean, it's a great goal. It's ambitious. I mean, you're running, what is it, 26 miles or some crazy thing? It's like, that's a lot. That's a long way to go. There's a few things I recommend with that. So taking care of your lungs is going to be really important with that. So like the use of, for example, cordyceps mushroom is great. That actually helps dilate your alveoli in the lungs, which helps you to kind of exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide better. The breath work is a great strategy there. Getting the heat shock proteins from a sauna is amazing. This particular sauna that I have is called Clear Light, and you can actually get this salt therapy thing in it. It's like an add-on, which it basically is like putting your body into a salt cave where it really helps to rehabilitate and clean out your lungs. So there's different ways to make sure that your lungs themselves are healthy. But the other side to it is exactly what we talked about earlier, being that SOD2 pathway and that mitochondrial detox. I'm not allowed to recommend peptides. Once again, I'm going to recommend you do your research on one called Carbon 60, C60. Carbon 60 has anti-inflammatory effects. It directly acts on superoxides in the body. So it'll actually help to clear those at an accelerated rate. So if your body is creating a lot of free radicals that you can't deal with, that may be that mover. That may be what's pushing you into that catabolic state. Really, I recommend a coaching program as well for you, because frankly, there's a lot of ways that we can tip the scales with regard to your nervous system that we just can't accomplish in a Q&A format right now. But it's the stretching, the foam rolling, the breathing, the optimizing your sleep, optimizing your detox, optimizing your methylation, optimizing your hormones. It goes on and on. And so, for someone who's choosing to live your life in a way that may be tipping you towards a catabolic state, which is absolutely your sovereign choice, and I think it's really awesome, we want to put as many interventions in place as possible to tip you back into that anabolism. But there's probably a lot of moving kind of parts to it. Everything related to recovery, detox, all of those things are going to matter. Check out the PEMF, like I just mentioned. I mean, a power nap in the middle of the day on a PEMF mat, that alone can restore anabolic activity pretty well. What do you think on that one, Felicia? Like, there's so many different ways to rehab the body from that.
You, I mean, you pretty much spelled it all out. No, that was phenomenal. I will say, I also recommend the EAAs instead of the BCAAs. Personal experience, I have found better results not taking the BCAAs and just starting with the EAAs. So, I would try that. It, like we said, it's a journey. Try, but I also agree with Justin. Yeah, we need to see a lot more different things and blood work and but I kudos to you. Anybody that can run for miles, I am just wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's beast mode. Beast
Yeah.
mode.
That is definitely beast mode.
Oh, it is.
Um, all
Hands
right.
down.
So, I mean, we've come to the end of our time here, and it looks like we're going to have to do a second part to this, Felicia, because we've still got more questions and things flooding in.
I see
Um,
that.
yeah. So, let's go ahead and schedule another one of these, because it seems like
Okay.
people are curious about fitness and want to know more. Felicia, this has been wonderful. I love having these conversations with you. I think fitness is a really big aspect of what we do. We teach that self-care model, right? Like, this is not a forced in model that you have to adopt because you're already sick and now the medical system is just going to do what they do to you. We teach people how to take care of themselves, right? This is how you can eat to optimize this. This is how you can move to optimize that. I really think that fitness and training strategies are one of those things people can elect to take on. And it's a great way to take care of yourself and get the most out of what your body is capable of. So thank you for rolling up, Felicia. We haven't done one of these in a while, and this was a lot of fun.
It's been a great time. Thank you, Justin. I always enjoy this. And yes, it's a journey. And, learning, and I learned so much from you too. And just, clients that the people that come in, it's just fun. It's fun to get together and talk fitness because as I say, it's a journey and we're all on a different path, but we're all really going to the same goal, right? We all want to be healthy. We all want to sleep better. So the end is kind of the same, just our journeys may look different. But it's fun to see what do you do versus what you do and how we get there. So thank you. Yeah, let's do it again. I'd be more than happy.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody for rolling up. I mean, without you, we wouldn't be here. So it's we do this for you guys, and I hope you guys learned something tonight. And I look forward to continuing to do these webinars and seeing everybody on here. So have a wonderful evening. Get your DNA done, and we'll see everybody on the next one.
Sounds great. Bye.
Bye bye.